I'm 17, and my stepmom Jane has always been one of the best people in my life. She married my dad when I was only 4, and ever since then she's been this steady, dependable presence I could always lean on. My biological mom was the one who raised me day to day, but before Jane came along, her relationship with my dad was so bitter that I barely ever saw him. Jane is the reason they eventually figured out how to co-parent without tearing each other apart. She pushed for everyone to get along, encouraged peace between them, and made sure to support both me and my mom when things got rough. Jane has always been a worker through and through. Back when she met my dad, he was basically at rock bottom, living out of a hotel, and my mom was doing everything she could to keep me away from him just because she was angry their relationship had failed. Jane, meanwhile, had her own house, a stable job, and enough determination to pull my dad out of that mess. She even helped set up visitation between me and him, despite my mom's hostility, and made sure my dad was regularly sending money even though neither of them could afford lawyers to arrange official child support. None of that was her responsibility, but she did it anyway, and as I got older it became clear she truly loved me like one of her own. When my half-brothers came along, she never treated me any differently. She even gave me my own room in her house because, at the time, I was bouncing around between my grandparents' place and whichever boyfriend my mom was with. Jane wanted me to have something steady and safe, and that meant the world to me. She's always been the exact opposite of the evil stepmother stereotype. When I was 15, Jane won a huge lawsuit against an airline and walked away with more than $1 million. Instead of wasting it, she used a big chunk of that money to set up trust funds for me and my brothers so that we'd be secure later in life. Even with all that money, she never changed her lifestyle in any flashy way. She paid off her house and has stayed there with my dad ever since. Sure, she got a new car and took a couple nice trips, but she never blew through her winnings the way some people would. Honestly, I respected her for that. But about a year ago, I started noticing something was off. Each time I saw Jane, she looked worse, sicker, but no one would tell me or my brothers what was going on. The only thing we knew was that she was spending a lot of time in the hospital. Around that same time, my mom suddenly started showing up around my dad more often, and her behavior was off. She was acting like she was trying to rekindle something with him. Whenever Jane was in the hospital, my mom would practically move into their house, playing mom to my brothers, which was bizarre because she had never liked Jane, or them, for that matter. She'd act like the perfect little housewife, which is so not her personality, and it felt fake as hell. The worst part? My dad started falling for it. I'm not stupid, I'm almost certain they were sleeping together. I tried to protect my brothers from noticing, but they're not clueless. I confronted my dad about it, but he swore it wasn't what I thought. Then a few weeks later, my mom started talking about wanting to travel, buy a new car, and invest money. That threw me off because she's been a bartender her entire life and always lived paycheck to paycheck. Suddenly, she was acting like she was about to come into some serious money, and that made my suspicions skyrocket. I couldn't stop wondering about Jane's health and my mom's weird behavior, so I decided to visit Jane in the hospital and ask her directly about my trust fund. That's when I learned something that crushed me. If Jane passed away, all of the money would go to my dad, who would then have full control over my and my brother's trust funds. When she asked why I was so concerned, I told her everything, the way my mom had been hanging around my dad, the fake domestic act, the suspicions I had. It was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had. Telling her the truth broke her heart, and it broke mine to be the one to cause it. That's also when she admitted that her health was worse than anyone had told us, her kidneys were failing, and the doctors had placed her in hospice care. She only has a few months left. We both cried together for a long time. 2 days ago, everything exploded. My mom stormed into the house, furious, and went after my dad. Turns out Jane had met with her lawyer and changed the trust so that my dad would get nothing, leaving full control to my stepaunt instead. My mom demanded to know how Jane found out about their affair, and that's when I spoke up. I told them I was the one who told her, and I didn't even feel bad about it. I said if they wanted to play stupid games, then they could deal with the consequences, because there was no way I was letting them screw Jane over after everything she had done for all of us. My mom slapped me across the face, and my dad just looked completely defeated. Then my mom admitted something that still makes me sick. She said she never really loved my dad, that she was only pretending so he'd marry her and she could get her hands on Jane's money. The absolute worst part of it all? My brothers saw everything unfold. So now, not only do they have to face the reality that their mom is dying, but they also have to process the fact that their dad was cheating the whole time. Ever since the truth came out about my dad and his vindictive ex, my mom, our family has been in complete shambles. Deep down I know it isn't really my fault, but I can't shake the feeling that somehow I triggered all of this. Yesterday I went back to the hospital to see Jane, and I told her everything about the fallout at home. She apologized to me, which honestly broke my heart, and explained that she had to dissolve my trust fund so my mom wouldn't get her hands on any of the money. But she also told me something else, because I'm her oldest, she's leaving me the house after she passes, and the property alone is worth more than both of my brother's trust funds combined. My dad won't get a dime, because Jane has already started the process of divorcing him before she dies. And honestly, I'm proud of her for that. She made me promise that I'd look after my brothers, and told me that once I turn 18 this summer, I'll legally have the power to kick my dad out of the house if I want to. And trust me, I plan on doing exactly that. I haven't spoken a single word to him since everything blew up, and I can't even look at my mom. I can't believe the two of them were scheming against Jane after everything she's done for us. They deserve each other, and I'm ashamed to even call them my parents. When I turn 18, my dad will be out of my life as much as possible, and my mom? I plan to cut her off completely. I honestly hope she rots. For now, I'm trying to spend as much time as possible at the hospital with Jane. She doesn't deserve to be surrounded by selfish, greedy people in her last months. I'm still reeling from the betrayal and heartbreak, but I can't even begin to imagine how much worse it feels for her. The thought of her dying makes me sick. I don't even want to think about it, but at least I can be there for her in the meantime. A lot of people keep asking me the same questions, so let me clarify. My plan is to use part of the estate to fight for guardianship of my twin brothers. That way, they can keep living in the house with me once I kick my dad out. If for some reason I can't get guardianship, then technically my dad would have to stay in the house. But once I turn 18, I'll be an adult, so even if he leaves with them, I can still legally take care of myself and provide a home for them whenever they want to come back. They'll be 18 in 6 years, so even in the worst case scenario, they'll always know they have somewhere safe to return to. In a perfect world, my dad would just walk away and let me raise them, because honestly, my biological mom hates all of us anyway, and that's never going to change. As for the trusts, from what Jane explained, each of my brothers will inherit one portion, and the third portion will go toward keeping the house running until they're adults. After that, I'll decide whether to sell the house or keep it. Personally, I don't want to sell. It's our home, and I'd rather maintain it so my brothers always have a place with me. And since they'll also still have money left in their trusts, they'll be able to branch out and live however they want when they're ready. Later, Jane told me in more detail why she dissolved my part of the trust. Originally, the plan was for the money to be split evenly 3 ways, and for my dad to inherit the house. She scrapped that. Instead, she took my share and redirected it to cover house expenses, then transferred the house into my name so my dad couldn't touch it. Financially, that actually gives me the biggest share, since the property is worth about 1.5 times more than each of my brothers' trusts. The only catch is that I can't sell it or do anything major with it until my brothers are grown, but that's fine by me. Stability for them comes first. Since the big fight on Sunday, I haven't spoken to either of my parents. As far as I know, they're both staying at my mom's place, which honestly works out for the best because all of us kids are furious with them anyway. Technically, it might not be legal for them to leave us alone like this, but I've been taking care of my brothers for more than a year now, and I can handle a few more days while they wallow in their own mess. I don't care what happens to either of them anymore. And in case anyone is wondering about Jane's health, she can't get dialysis. She has a genetic condition that causes cysts on her kidneys. She had a transplant a few years back, but then developed serious artery problems in her legs, which disqualified her from further treatment. Another transplant is technically possible, but she doesn't want to go through it again after how traumatic the last one was with rejections and complications. So at this point, it's all about keeping her comfortable. That's where we're at now. Jane eventually decided not to fight her illness with another transplant or dialysis. Instead, she chose to rely on maintenance medications, not to save her life but to give herself enough time to get her affairs in order. She told me she'd rather pass away surrounded by people she loves than die on an operating table. With her other health problems, the risks of treatment were simply too high, and I respected her decision. When she explained why she dissolved my trust fund, she admitted she technically didn't have to. But she didn't trust my biological parents not to pull something shady before I turned 18. Even if my aunt controlled the fund, my dad could still try to access it if something happened to Jane before I was legally an adult. Her lawyer suggested it was safer to dissolve it altogether, and honestly, I agreed. I'm no expert in this stuff, but it sounded like the smartest option. As for how my mom even found out about the changes, my best guess is that Jane confided in my dad, who then spilled it to my mom. I can't think of any other way, and honestly, I didn't even care enough to push Jane for details. She had no idea what my mom had really been doing behind her back. From Jane's perspective, my mom had her own place and only came around whenever Jane was stuck in the hospital. Since I've been living with my dad for over a year, I figured he told Jane that my mom was helping out by spending time with me if he told her anything at all. My mom didn't start practically moving in until a few months ago, which is probably when their whole scheme began. And because Jane never outright banned her from visiting, there wasn't much she could do to stop it. As for the estate, Jane told me that the leftover money not already locked into my brother's trusts would be used to maintain the house, covering utilities, taxes, and upkeep until they turn 18. After that, I'll get to decide whether to sell or keep it. My personal plan is to work hard, go to school, and eventually get a stable job so I can hold on to the house. I don't ever want to sell it, but Jane wanted me to know that the option will always be there. When I think about Jane compared to my biological mom, it's not even close. Jane has been more of a real mom to me than the woman who gave birth to me. My bio mom has always been pretty indifferent about my existence, while Jane went out of her way to be involved. She paid for my sports teams, sent me to dance classes, and always showed interest in my hobbies as I grew up. Being the only girl, I think we shared a bond that she couldn't have with my brothers. She constantly reminded me I was just as important as them. Some of my best memories are of Jane and me having girl time, watching movies together, just the two of us. She was always mature, level-headed, and exactly the kind of woman I want to grow up to be. My mom, on the other hand, has always felt like a teenager trapped in an adult's body, constantly fighting with my dad over nonsense, while Jane stayed calm and kept my best interests at heart. My mom made Jane's life miserable for years, but Jane never once complained to me about it. Meanwhile, my mom couldn't stop bad-mouthing Jane. It's no wonder I've always felt more at peace with Jane. If there's any advice I could give to step-parents out there, it's this: treat your stepkids like they're your own, ignore the drama, and just love them. Kids can tell when it's real. Update 1. A lot of you asked for an update, so here it is. Jane is still alive, and she's doing better than I expected given the circumstances. She's always been a fighter. Even though the disease is still progressing, she's keeping a positive outlook. She told me she's thankful she got to see everyone's true colors before she goes, because at least now she knows who was really on her side. In the past few months, Jane and I have grown even closer. It's heartbreaking to know that our time is limited, but she doesn't bring it up much because she doesn't want to hurt me. We both know what's coming, so we just focus on making the most of the time we still have. I don't tell her every single bit of drama happening at home. I don't think she needs that stress, but she knows enough. We actually ended up throwing her a surprise celebration of life party I had been planning. More people showed up than I expected, and a bunch of them rented an Airbnb near the hospital so they could be part of it. We even managed to take Jane out to a lake nearby, which was beautiful. The whole event was simple and low-key, exactly how Jane likes things. I even tracked down one of her old college friends on LinkedIn and got him to come, which made her day. We ate, played games, listened to music. It was a genuinely happy time. Jane cried toward the end, but she promised it was only because she felt so grateful. My brothers are doing better too. My aunt, Jane's sister, has been paying for their therapy, and it's helping them open up about everything that's been happening. They're finally starting to talk about it instead of keeping everything bottled up, which is a relief for me to see. My brothers just turned 13, but sometimes it feels like I'm talking to grown adults. They've become so independent lately in a good way, and aside from me driving them places, I barely have to do anything for them. Their grades aren't the best, but they're not failing either, which, considering everything we've been through, honestly feels like a win. They still hang out with their friends, and I make sure to keep an eye out for any signs of depression, but so far, they're holding up better than I ever expected. The situation with my mom has been both pathetic and humiliating. At first, she ignored us for weeks, then suddenly tried to worm her way back into my life, practically begging me to let her move in because her lease was about to expire. That conversation went about as well as you'd think. When I refused, she called me an ungrateful bitch and said I couldn't ignore her because she was my mom. I told her to leave before I called the police and to go back to my dad, who at that point was only swinging by every few days to grab clothes. After that, she tried showing up at the house a few more times. When I wouldn't let her in, she'd lose it and start screaming outside loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. After the third time, I finally called the cops. Because I was still 17, the officers said there was a chance they'd have to send me home with her since she was technically the custodial parent. I flat out refused, telling them I was the only one caring for my brothers and wasn't about to abandon them. That led to a whole back and forth until my dad eventually showed up. Once he was there, the cops agreed I could stay, since I'd been living in that house for more than a year. They also warned my mom that if she came back again and caused drama, they'd arrest her for trespassing since it was Jane's house, not hers. My neighbors backed me up, saying she'd been there screaming before, and that was the last straw. She hasn't tried coming around since, though for a while she called me constantly, demanding things and telling me I owed her. She's now blocked on everything, and if she needs to communicate with me, she has to go through my dad. As for my dad, since he legally had to be around until I turned 18, we mostly just avoided each other. Honestly, it wasn't that bad because I learned to use his guilt against him to get my way. For example, when he planned to contest the divorce, I threatened to kick him out the second I turned 18 if he did. He gave in, signed the papers, and went along with whatever Jane wanted. I don't disrespect him outright, he's still my dad, but I've made it very clear I won't be following his lead ever again. Most of the time he stays in his room or spends a day or two at my mom's place until they inevitably fight and she kicks him out again. Whether I'll actually kick him out for good or not, I haven't decided yet. I'm just taking it day by day. As for me, I'm handling everything the best I can. I found a new job that pays a little more, so I'm saving money while balancing work, school, and hospital visits with Jane. Between all that and caring for my brothers, I've barely had time to sit down and process everything. Thankfully, one of my close friends has stepped up in a huge way, helping me manage the chaos and supporting not just me but my brothers too. I'm so grateful for him. Things aren't easy, but I'm keeping it together. Final update, December 14th, 2024. Hi everyone, it's me again. I've gotten a lot of messages over the past few months asking for updates, so I'm making this my final one. As many of you probably guessed, Jane passed away in early fall. It was sudden and traumatic, but the silver lining is that she lived far longer than her doctors predicted. When she finally let go, she was on palliative care, pain-free, and surrounded by family, me, my brothers, and even my dad. We were all so grateful for that. Right up until the end, Jane's body was failing, but her mind stayed sharp. Following advice from many of you, I recorded voice notes for my brothers. I originally wanted to make videos, but by then Jane and I agreed they didn't need to remember her hooked up to tubes. She also wrote dozens of letters to friends, to family, and even to me for different milestones in my life. She gave me one to open right after her passing, and though I won't share the details, I can tell you it confirms something I've always felt: Jane is, and always will be, my true mother. Losing her shattered me. She was kind, steady, and the person I hope to become one day. My brothers are devastated, of course, but they've been handling it with strength that amazes me. They're still in therapy, both together and separately, and we talk whenever they feel ready. We've always been close, but now we lean on each other more than ever. Honestly, I think I need them as much as they need me, because they're the only people who understand exactly what I'm going through. Losing Jane, our family's glue, has somehow brought us closer. My dad and I have been rebuilding too. We went to a few therapy sessions together, and he took full accountability for how badly he messed up. I've forgiven him as much as I can, especially since in the end he stepped up for Jane when she needed him most. Even though they finalized the divorce, he's still living with us. Things are sometimes tense, but he's been trying to be the man he should have been all along. Some people might say it's too little too late, but he's my dad. For my own peace of mind, I've chosen forgiveness. My biological mom? She disappeared the second I turned 18. She tried once or twice to convince me to let her move in, but I wasn't having it. Even my dad told her he was done with her. After we all blocked her, she stopped reaching out completely. From what I've heard, she's living with some new boyfriend now. I don't follow her, and I don't care to. She never once apologized for what she did, and honestly, she can stay gone. It still stings to know she dropped me so easily once money wasn't in the picture, but it just shows her true colors. As for me, I'm doing okay. I decided to take a year off before starting college so I could focus on family and healing. I'm still working at my job, saving money, and trying to stay grounded. My friends have been amazing, and I can't thank them or all of you online enough for the constant support. My plan is to study journalism eventually, but I'm giving myself the time I need. My family comes first, and if that means waiting a little longer, so be it. So this is my last update. Thank you all for the love, the advice, and the encouragement. Jane knew about your support too, and it meant so much to her. Hold your loved ones close, and never ignore the red flags of people who seem too good to be true. Much love to all of you.